then transform these into new business models. And that's why we also have a venture capital which is supporting startups in the various sector and fields we offer, starting from computer science to software engineering, advanced material, to quantum computing, and so on. So a huge range, and you can benefit from that. Then we have the innovations. Innovations not only on the content side, but also, again, from the methodology, the way we deliver our programs. And this brings me directly to the next topic, the technology-driven approach we have. And this, I think, is indeed very unique, because we're working with a system we have created on our own, SRT Alamira. It's a learning management software platform which allows actually to incorporate artificial intelligence in creating individual learning paths for a person going through a program. What does it mean in reality is actually that depending on your previous knowledge you already have on a certain topic, the learning path, the modules you have to take to get certified is not equal to the next person taking the same course. Because the system is learning on your previous knowledge, how fast you're learning, how good you're learning, and then is designing individually, particular for you, the right learning path. Maybe shorten, you have to take less modules than another person, maybe you have to take a few more, maybe the sequence is different, but this is a very, very unique approach and illustrates how SRT Academy actually works with technology, the high tech, and merge it with the high touch, the content we have there. And last but not least, I would like to point out our sixth differentiator, which is excellency. I believe in seamless convenience, and that's what we try to achieve with our offering here as well. Starting from pure online course, which can be blended with webinars, even physical workshops, again, after Corona. And this is what we want to achieve and offering as a single point or one-stop shop, single point of contact for you as an individual, but also for an organization. And we strongly believe in customer centricity. If we create programs for companies, we work very closely, very carefully with the person responsible in the organization to really grab the needs and have the understanding of the organization and then create the program guaranteeing the impact of the people participating in these programs. And why is this so important? And why is all this venture so important? Because we strongly believe, as already Malcolm X mentioned it a few years ago, that education is indeed the passport to the future. And this is true for everyone. It's true for Acronis, it's true for us at SIT, but I'm sure it's also true for you and your organization. Now the question is, how can you benefit as a partner of Acronis from what we have achieved already and what we're going to do in the future? And I just have listed a few things here which you can profit and how you can profit of these things. Just take, for example, the cybersecurity course. We're going to show you in a few minutes a preview of that course. I give you some explanation on the content and on the structure. If you're going to apply this promo code you see here, and you will get an email after this Acronis Cyber Summit as well with that promo code, you get a 20% discount for enrollment. Not only for you, but for everyone in your organization, if you're keen to take this course. If you have a talent in your organization who really needs solid training and maybe going into a master's program, we offer an online master's program in computer science and software engineering. And again, Acronis is offer all partners a 20% discount on the tuition fee. At SRT Academy, we also do this executive education, tailored program for you as an organization. If you have a particular request for leadership training, for change management, you name it, we are here to help. And please contact us, and we're going to help you and design a program which is specifically for you, only for you, and we are happy to deliver that at your premise, or if you want to come here to our campus, you're more than welcome to do so. Tap to our students' network. The IT industry is lacking talents in general, and in particular, they have an issue with staffing. So we have more than 75 students currently in our SIT Master's program. These are potential employees in your or for your organization. So why not work with us and give them a chance, try to find the right talent, and get them a job in your organization. And last but not least, R&D. If you have a question which is urgent, if you think, okay, this is a topic which might be something for research and development, work with us, with our faculty, with our PhD students, and take advantage of our ecosystem we have. But now, let me go on the topic of today's course I would like to explain and show you. Cybersecurity. It's our first online course we developed, and as I mentioned, we're going to launch it officially in 2 days from now. What was the main purpose? What was our motivation to create an online course on cybersecurity? Well, you see it here. We believe that cybersecurity is something executives need to understand in organization. Professionals, for sure, need to have a very solid, very good understanding on the topic. But in general, I think if you look at initiatives or policy developments in the US, in the EU, cyber hygiene is going to be a huge topic in the future. And that's why we tapped into this issue and we created an online course. Now, I would like to invite the faculty or one of the faculty who was participating in this course on stage and have a quick discussion with him around the topic of cybersecurity. Candid Wüst is VP Cyber Protection Research at Acronis and visiting faculty at SIT Academy. And together with Candid, we developed this online course we're going to show you in a few minutes. So please, Candid, may I ask you to come on stage and have a discussion around the topic on cybersecurity.
Thank you, Philip. And also welcome to everyone from my side. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about education and cybersecurity, which is definitely an important topic.
This brings me back to the question, Candid, the statement I have shown before. It's mentioning that cybersecurity or the understanding of cybersecurity is a critical skill for executives. Is it indeed such an important skill for executives in today's business world?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, because cybersecurity is vital for every business nowadays. Just imagine if your business is actually, let's say, manufacturing, or maybe you're a legal firm, or maybe you're a hairdresser shop. Well, most of the time, IT plays a vital part of your organization. There's a joke that most of the banks and financial institutions are actually more IT institutions by now, because they have so many programmers, developers, and so on. Which means you have to have a mindset about security, right? So it is also important to be a top-down approach. So management does need to understand the risks associated with the digital transformation, kind of where are all those wheels coming together, and then they have to apply it to their organization. And it's critical that it will be supported by management, because otherwise we see that people are trying to do something, but if management doesn't do it, well, it's probably doomed already. So it's very good to have that understanding on the risk side, knowing where your business risks are actually inside your organization, and then transform that into actionable things that you can develop inside your organization to be more resilient to the threats of tomorrow.
But Candid, I'm not a cybersecurity expert at all. I'm coming from the education side. Is there anything new to learn? I mean, firewalls and antivirus systems and protection has been around for more than 30 years now. So why should we create a new course on this topic?
Yeah, it's a valid point, and you might definitely think so, that in the last 40 years, I mean, the concept haven't really changed, right? You have firewalls to block what's coming in and out. You check for viruses and malicious behavior. But think about it. The threat landscape, or the whole IT landscape, has actually changed drastically in the last 10 years, right? We moved to the cloud. We have 5G coming in. We have software as a service. We have mobile phones which are capable to, well, do a lot more than the PCs 20 years ago. So all those things are now interconnected. New business models coming up, which also means new attack vectors for the bad guys. So you have to think about all those new things and integrate them. So yes, you might still be applying the same scenarios as in hardening, detecting malicious behavior, or just recognizing some patterns. But in the background, there might now be blockchain involved, or the question on, is quantum computing going to break your encryption, right? How about privacy? There's regulations and so on. So a lot more to come, which actually changed the whole things. So there's definitely a few things that you should pick up because it is changing fast and you need to be updated regularly.
So again, to make it really practical, which is the intention of this course we have created, what is currently the most common threat and biggest risk for companies when it comes to cyber threats?
Well, I guess I could be talking for an hour or two on that, because there's so many threats out there, right? On any given day, the AV Test Institute sees about 400,000 new malware samples. 400,000 every day, right? So a lot of malware coming in, usually through email. So email with an attachment that you're enticed to open, those are classical ones that we see. Of course, phishing as well, where they try to lure you into revealing your password on a fake website and then use it to attack you on other services. During the lockdown and the pandemic, we also saw that more and more services are exposed either in the cloud or maybe in your perimeter, where you have remote desktop protocol servers, VPN, Citrix, VDIs, and so on. And all of those, well, they have unfortunately vulnerabilities, or they might have weak passwords. So they are more and more attacked as well by the attackers. And one which is definitely dear to my heart is, of course, targeted ransomware attacks. So those are the ones where they encrypt your data. Well, actually, they not just encrypt it, they also steal your data beforehand, and then they hold it ransom, so they will ask you for a lot of money to get it back. Sometimes it might be $4 or $5 million US just to get access back to your data. And, well, you can imagine, not every small or mid-sized company can afford to pay that much. But on the other hand, well, if bankruptcy is the other option, that's not really a good option either. So definitely a lot of threats out there which you have to cover.
Okay, I understand. It has an impact. You might have to pay some money. But can you give some examples maybe to better understand the impact, how severe it can be also from a business side? What does it mean for the business model? Does it have an impact? Or basically, once you have paid, you go back to normal and you continue to do your business as usual?
I mean, profit, as in money-oriented, is definitely the motivation number one for cyber criminals. But of course, if your business is interrupted for 1, 2, or 3 days, then can have a serious impact on your whole ecosystem as well. You might not be able to produce whatever goods you're creating, delivering all to your supply chain. So that might have some repercussions as well. On the other hand, if your data is stolen, and maybe your customer data is then publicized, leaking somewhere, they might not really be happy about that as well. So they might take legal actions against you. Or there might be some privacy laws like GDPR, which can actually have some impact on you as well, so you might have to pay a fine on it, right? Or the data might be misused in a further attack because they saw your network environment, they saw some passwords, and now they're using it because they know you paid the last time, so maybe you pay again. And don't forget about the reputation. I mean, yes, we're used to reading newspapers on breach here, breach there, but still, is it really good if you're in the press about not protecting your customer data, not being able to operate? Nowadays, there's definitely some opportunities for your competition, right, to go in. So don't make that happen. Make sure that you cover cyber protection on all those fronts, because it's not just about the money. It's not just about not being able to produce. It's about all of those cyber risks about your digital data.
Okay, I understand. But for me, again, this sounds like this is a very important topic for large companies, big companies, famous companies, which makes it a very attractive target for these criminals. But the majority of the world, the business world, is small and medium-sized enterprise. How are they impacted by cyber threats nowadays?
Yeah, it's kind of a misconception that people think, oh, it's only the big global players who are attacked, and who would attack us, right? We're a small player. That's actually not the case. There's always something of interest for the attacker, even if it's a small business, right? I mean, yes, maybe they're not asking for 10 million, but maybe 100,000. And if they do it 10 times, well, that's already a big paycheck for them as well. Also think about the attackers. They might not want your data, your intellectual property, if you don't really have any. Well, most of the times you actually do. But maybe they're just interested in using your environment, your resources to attack your customers, or maybe just using your trusted brand to attack someone else. So we actually saw in different studies that about 42% of the attacks nowadays are aiming at small and mid-sized companies, because they are definitely out there, right? But they might not be thinking that they will be attacked. So in most cases, they probably have already been attacked. They just don't know about it because they haven't been looking, right? It's not their core thing that they look after. It probably shouldn't be, but they have to be aware of it and make sure that they can mitigate the risk, being resilient about it, and for that, they need to know what's going on the market.
But do you think these small and mid-sized enterprises are well prepared, if you look today, state of, as of today, for attacks like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be pointing fingers here, but unfortunately, I think the answer is no. We've seen that a lot of small and mid-sized companies, they don't really have the resources, being it money-wise or skill-wise, to actually do it, right? But on the other hand, they usually do not really want to push it to someone else, to use a managed security provider, because exactly as before, they say, oh, it's not going to happen to us. In the last 10 years, nothing happened. We will work for the next 10 years as well. And this is futile, right? I mean, that's definitely not how you should approach business risks. So if we talk about the big companies like financial sector, pharmaceutical sector, they have learned in the past to protect their environment, to make sure that nobody else can actually get into your salary account and transfer all the money off. So they have learned. They made some mistakes as well, but they have quite a good security level. Unfortunately, on the small and mid-sized companies, we still have a lot of learning to do, and also the implementation. But that's where automation, awareness, and of course, integration can help to actually bring down the resources that you need to still stay cyber fit.
Very interesting. I would like to take the opportunity now to all the participants we have to also ask their questions, which we are very happy to answer here live on stage. So please just don't be shy, shoot a message on the chat function, and we are very happy to integrate that in our panel discussion and answer your question. I would like to go back to a statement Candid mentioned before. We're facing a very severe crisis with Corona today, which has a massive impact on the way we work. A lot of us are working from home. A lot of us approaching the cloud services or take advantage of cloud services. And everything had to be set up super fast because the businesses had to react given the situation. Now, Candid, what does it mean when you're looking from a cybersecurity perspective, this new work life or work situation overall?
We have definitely seen a shift happening, right? Because as you mentioned, a lot of people are working now from home or working from anywhere, wherever they're stranded. They might be using private laptops because the company might not have had enough laptops to hand out, right? So those devices might not be managed by IT. They might not do backups regularly as they should. They might not encrypt the data. So there's a lot of things which I'd say should be on your policy, right? Do you actually have that in your strategy? Or will you just find out at the end of the year if some data will get missing? On the cybercrime side, we've definitely seen a shift as well. As I mentioned, we've seen a lot of attacks going after those exposed services because everyone is using VPN at the moment or remote desktop protocol to go back to their desktop that is still in the office where they cannot go to. Well, so are the attackers. They will try and guess your password, right? So if you have a weak password, well, they probably might find it out before you, right? Or if it's not patched, or if it's just exposed and you have forgotten that you actually have those servers. And they also make kind of profit, or let's say use the fear and the uncertainty with the whole pandemic. So we've seen an increase in phishing emails saying, hey, you've been invited to this Zoom meeting or this WebEx meeting, right? And people are probably not so used to those online conferences, so they might still click on it, then get to a website which mimics the Office 365 and put in their password, which of course means now the password has been revealed to the attackers. Two-factor authentication can help you here, but we've seen some phishing attacks which even take your two-factor authentication token, like the second password, and then use it automatically in the background to log in. We also seen, of course, that they try to play with the motivation of getting money. So emails saying, hey, you've been cleared for some relief money, just fill out this information here and then we will send you all the money. And a lot of people are desperate, right? So they will fill it out with their private, personal information, submit it. Now the information is at the attackers, and what they actually did was they take this information, apply for the grant themselves, but of course not with your account number, but with their own account number. So in the end, they make the money, and you will never get any dime of it. So there's a lot of things that have changed, which means you have to change your perspective of how you address those threats as well. Because nowadays, it's no longer the perimeter like the old castle with the moat and maybe some crocodiles and snakes, right? That has gone. A lot of traffic is now in the cloud. It's never passing through your network. So the identity is kind of the new perimeter. You need to make sure that you know which devices are accessing my data. What is happening with the data? Is it encrypted or is it shared on some collaboration tool which is not sanctioned by IT and might even be kind of hosted somewhere where you don't really want your data to be? So a lot of things to think about, and of course a lot of things that you probably should check, because otherwise there might be impacts as we discussed before.
Indeed, a lot to think about, and if I understood you correctly, I think we have two dimensions here to talk about cybersecurity. One for sure is the technical part, but it sounds to me like there's also a very important managerial and organizational part, how actually to get things organized and make sure a cyber attack cannot happen. Is this assumption correct?
Absolutely. You can do a lot with technical constraints and kind of implementing anti-malware, backup, firewalls, and so on. But as you mentioned, there's also the administrative part behind it. You need to have the right controls, the right processes that you know how can you actually address it, right? What's happening if a new employee is onboarded, or what happens if someone gets fired? What are the steps that you need to take care of? So all of these things definitely need to be taken care of. And of course, that also goes into awareness, right? You have to make awareness training so that your employees actually know how to identify those phishing emails, how to identify if someone is trying to lure you into clicking on a password or anything like this, but also how can you actually make your infrastructure more secure, right? Should you use specific software, or should you actually just switch completely to a different module to have even better protection? Those are all the things, the strategy that you need to learn about. So awareness training and, of course, education, as we talk about today, is a vital part of it as well.
Well, when you talk about awareness training and education or training, can you tell me or us which type of employees needs to have such a training? Is it everyone? Is it only the managers? Is it the professionals who are responsible for IT security in an organization? Who needs to have this kind of training?
Well, I guess the more the better, right? It definitely doesn't hurt. So it should be for everyone. Everyone in your organization should have a basic cyber threat training, which means everyone who's probably having an email account and can check it, even if it's just from their mobile phone, everyone who's managing some kind of IT equipment, up to the management level who deal with all kind of financial data, probably a lot of Excel tables, and all the other interesting information. So all of those should know about the threat landscape out there, should know how the bad guys are trying to attack you, trying to get to your data and exfiltrate it, so that they can actually know about it, prevent it by not clicking on the email, not giving out their password, but also report it back to your IT department so that they can warn all the other people who might not be as smart as you. But of course, you also need specific trainings for specific organization levels or departments. So maybe your HR department might need some specific trainings, because they will, of course, receive emails from strangers with attachments like Word documents, CVs. You cannot really say, oh, please do not open any email from strangers, right? That's kind of counterproductive. So they need to be trained how to handle those Word documents with malicious macros in it. How should they behave with it? Is there a different process, a different machine, and so on? Probably the same also for developers or anyone in the IT department, right? They might be prime candidates to actually look at the secure development lifecycle. How can you make sure that security is a part from the beginning? It's kind of integrated in the whole development process and not just sprinkled on top at the end, because we all know that's usually failing. You need to build it at the beginning, then it's a lot cheaper than trying to fix it after you already shipped. So I'd say there has to be different levels of education and awareness trainings for the different levels, but the most important thing is that you do it for everyone to have at least some basic knowledge.
And we have the first questions from the audience, which I'm very happy to hand over to Candid. And it's actually about the Cyber Protect Cloud, if it's actually covered GDPR scenarios or not. So maybe, Candid, you can quickly give us some insights if this is indeed covering GDPR or not.
Yes, so Acronis Cyber Protection Cloud is, of course, you can have it also as an on-prem version if you don't really want to go into the cloud. But we deliberately made it that we can actually run it in data centers that we have across the globe, and we are expanding to about 110 different data centers, because we believe it's important to have your data center inside your own country to make it more conform to all the regulations that you might have to apply to. And yes, of course, we do have encryption on top of it to make sure that your data is always encrypted and only you have the keys to decrypt it, making sure that you can follow all the rules for GDPR, where you need to know where the data is and what's happening with it. But to be honest, it's still your responsibility to know, well, do I actually have to collect all this information, right? That we do not cover, because we cannot cover that. That's up to you to decide it. Afterwards, once you store it in the cloud, we can make sure that it is protected.
But I think this is a very good example of the approach SIT Academy is taking by addressing exactly these type of questions in a very holistic, at the same time integrated approach, by having experts talking about these contents, and then this general content can be deepened in live workshops with participants, can be actually addressed and go more into details, and then tailored to the needs of a particular company who has a request like that to really work with these people. Now back to general awareness training, which I think is a very important topic we have heard and learned from Candid, because again, we have the technical control, but we have the administrative control. Now, Candid, can you tell me if, again, my assumption is right, that the human person or the person within the organization might be the weakest point in cybersecurity, or is it the IT infrastructure which is the weakest point?
Yeah, unfortunately, the human element is quite often still the weakest link in your chain. There's always someone in your organization that will be clicking on that very enticing email saying, hey, you won the Spanish lottery. Although we all know you shouldn't, but you're curious, maybe I got the money, right? So they will click on it. So it has to be, of course, that you make sure you can cover that percentage with some technology. But you should always have both integrated. So the human element, making sure that they actually know why you have some security controls, why you have some technical controls in place. That really helps them to understand it and then support it. If you as IT security department are just seen as kind of a business prohibitor where you block everything, then they will try, as in the employees will try everything in their power to find a bypass to it, right? They bring their own laptop, they bring their own mobile phone. But if they actually understand why it makes sense to have all those steps integrated and make it a bit harder for you to access your account because you have now a second token to enter, then they will probably help you because they know, well, it actually makes sense. I can protect the whole company, and therefore I protect myself as well.
This is an interesting point because, again, I believe that many companies we see don't have the means to have a huge IT force which can take care of cybersecurity. Often, these companies work with external partners to take care of cyber protection. And this brings me to another question we have from the audience, and it's about the sensitivity, how to store and protect sensitive information if you have a third-party vendor or a third-party consultant or IT service who is protecting your data. How do you deal with these issues?
I think the first step, of course, is knowing about where the data is and what data we're dealing with, right? Visibility. Knowing, is it personally identifiable information? Does it have to be protected? Or is it actually kind of not so sensitive, still should be protected, but not on the same level? Second part, again, encryption. So making sure that it's encrypted at rest wherever it's used, either if it's in the cloud or even in your backups, right? Specifically now with the working from home, a lot of people are making backups to their USB drive at home because it might be faster compared to the cloud, but that might be the same disk where they also do a backup of their pictures from the last vacation. So can you actually separate it, or is there a chance that the whole customer database will end up on a USB drive which might be lost somewhere in a train, right? So there are different approaches. I'd say visibility is, of course, the start, and then tracking of what's happening with the information, but also who's accessing that information. So that's why we set on a lot of behavior-based approaches using machine learning and artificial intelligence to actually track what's happening with your data to help you, on one side, understand, hey, you have data on your machine which is not protected because it's not inside your backup, so you probably should add it, and we can suggest that. On the other hand, we can also track, hey, you downloaded a lot of sensitive information and you pushed it to this service which is not really conform, so you should actually encrypt it automatically. Let us do that for you. So there's different approaches. Unfortunately, as always, there's not one size fits all, but it's already good that you're asking that question because it's the right question to ask.
And there's another very interesting question from the audience. Is something Candid and myself, plus the other faculties involved in our online course, have been discussing several times. If we're using simulation software or special simulation as part of the cybersecurity training. As a matter of fact, for the current online course, we haven't done that yet, but this is actually the planned extension. And we strongly believe that cyber simulation is a crucial element in cybersecurity education. Maybe, Candid, you can add a few words on that topic. How do you see the role of simulation as part of cybersecurity education?
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned tabletop exercises before, right? Going into the organization and actually discussing what should be done inside your environment. Because most of the environments might be slightly different, right? Because you might be grown, you might have acquired a company and they're stitched together. So it's hard to say kind of what fits for everyone. So you should always have a look what's exactly happening inside that specific organization. And I believe strongly that having a simulated attack, kind of going through it step by step and say, okay, let's assume they came in through that way, or what would happen if all this data here is actually encrypted? Or even just sending out a phishing email and counting how many of your employees actually click on the link can be really, really eye-opening. Because in the end, there will always be some people who click on it, right? And you can then bring that back to the awareness training, right? On one side, make sure that those who clicked will actually get the chance to do some additional training. Maybe you specify them a little more. And on the technical side, if you figure out that you would be blind against any attack coming in through email, well, maybe you should think about adding some additional constraints on top of it to mitigate the risk, to minimize your blind spot there. So absolutely, I agree with you that it is vital or important to do those simulation exercises. And as you mentioned, we are definitely looking into do that in the future.
Great, Candid. Super interesting, our discussion here, and I really hope the participants have been able to profit from our discussion and the question they have sent us, we have been able to answer, hopefully. Time is running, and we are already at the end of this panel discussion, but I would take on board the cue Candy just mentioned again, which is the awareness training. And that was our main purpose of creating our first online course on cybersecurity, with the clear intention what you need to know to protect your business. And again, it's exactly what we have been discussing now on stage here. It's about creating awareness. And we had two absolutely brilliant faculties, main faculty, to able to create this course. On one hand, we had Candid. You just saw him on stage. He was faculty at SIT Academy and, as I mentioned, VP at Cyber Protection Research at Acronis. And he was covering all the technical part. But I was speaking about interdisciplinarity at the beginning of this workshop. And to cover that, we have invited a second main speaker, which was Rainer Kessler. Rainer used to be the Chief Information Security Officer at UBS, and now he's partner at CyberHub, an amazing and very rich experience in managing cybersecurity in large organizations, but now as well as a consultant for typical SMEs. The two of them actually have been our main faculty in curating the program. We have invited additional faculty to join just for short stints to bring in their particular expertise on certain areas. And how have we structured this course? We created three main domains, which we believe are important when we talk about cybersecurity and awareness training. First of all, we have the foundation. And the foundation is divided into cyber principles, and these are really indeed very basic modules to cover the most relevant and most important topics here. And then we went into the cyber threats. I mean, we talked about this on stage, how important it is to understand what is there in the world and what kind of common threats and really important threats, critical threats are there. So this is the foundation part. And then we went into the prevention part, how you can prepare your organization, avoiding serious cyber attacks. And we have splitted this part into two subdomains. The first one was looking purely on the technical side. So again, you see the technical preventions you can do on the various levels. And then we had the second pillar, where we talk about the managerial impact or aspects of prevention, starting really from HR, but also talking about IT strategy, going into the topic of governance, which again is a very important and critical aspect of cybersecurity within an organization. And then last but not least, if something is happening, a company should also be ready to recover. And recovery is a critical element. Again, from a technical perspective, when we talk about physical recovery of data, of passwords, etc., but also forensic to understand who attacked you, with even have legal actions behind, but also the communication. Just have a look recently on the newspaper. Basically, every day you can read about the cyber attack of one of the big companies in the world. You need to prepare. You need to be ready to know how to communicate. And that's what we have been trying to cover in this course. Overall, this course consists of 50 modules. Each module is around 15 to 20 minutes, divided into 3 parts with interactive questions in between to guarantee the learning, to really push the participants to learn, to understand, and be able to apply at a later stage. Now, for the preview we have prepared for you, we actually have been looking at this middle dimension, prevention. And again, we have been looking on the technical side. And when we looked at the technical part of the prevention, we have divided it into general overview of cybersecurity measures. We had the physical defense, we have the technical defense, administrative defense, and again, new opportunities. If you think about artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, etc., these topics are covered there. What we're going to highlight in the preview, which you can access in a second, is actually what you have there in red, email security. And we talked about it with Candid in the panel discussion. Email security is a critical element with remote working today. Corona situation have pushed this topic to the foreground of cybersecurity. And we want to give you a preview exactly on that topic, how we have covered it, how we understand cybersecurity training, awareness training can create it. And here is the way you can access. And here my presentation is going to end. Take your second device or type in and scan the QR code or type in the link you see here. You also have it received on your chat, and just spend a few minutes on this new platform and grab and learn how we have created this course. Again, the discussion on the content you see is email security. The faculty is again candid, and you see how we have translated this topic into an educational learning nugget for you to join. And if you like it, what we hope obviously is actually you can start to enroll already from 2 days onwards, profit from the 20% discount and go through this cybersecurity training. We are very happy, Candid and myself, that you have been joining us today to this workshop on SIT Academy. I hope you understood what we want to achieve, and please visit our website regularly because we're going to update it with new courses we're going to offer in the near future. And we hope you're going to like this particular course and that you and your employees will enjoy the cybersecurity training offered in these programs. So once again, thanks a lot and goodbye.